Real leadership isn't about fat paychecks or flashy titles. It's about stepping up for your people, especially when the stakes couldn't be higher. And right now, something wild is unfolding in West Africa that almost no one saw coming. In a move that's raising eyebrows around the globe, Burkina Faso has just brought 700 North Korean commandos into the country. And no, they're not here to hand out food or shake hands at peace talks. These soldiers are here for one reason: to stand guard over President Ibrahim Traoré. So, here's the burning question. Why would one of the world's most isolated and unpredictable regimes send elite troops halfway around the globe to protect a young African leader? Why risk global backlash? Why now? Let's rewind the tape. When foreign troops land in Africa, they usually wear NATO uniforms or maybe a French flag on their shoulder. That's the playbook. That's the pattern. But this, North Korean boots on the ground in Africa? That's a plot twist no one saw coming. And it's not a rumor. It's real, official, confirmed. The government of Burkina Faso and North Korean state media both made it clear this is happening. These aren't diplomats, not trainers, not medics. They're battle-ready commandos, fully armed and already integrated into top-tier security operations. Their mission? Protect President Traoré, lock down key assets, and stop the next coup before it even begins. Now sure, we've seen Russia flexing its muscles in Africa recently, Wagner mercenaries filling the power vacuum left by retreating French forces in places like Mali in the Central African Republic. But North Korea? That's different. That's a game changer. And here's the kicker: this wasn't leaked by some whistleblower. It wasn't denied or buried. It was announced, out loud, boldly, on the record. So now everyone's asking, what's really going on? What does this alliance mean for Africa's balance of power, and maybe even the world's? Stick with us, because what's unfolding in Burkina Faso might just be the opening chapter in a whole new global shift. Sources close to the ground say this isn't just about protection, it's part of a broader strategic play, built around three core goals. First, shield President Traoré and his top officials from any threats internal or external. Second, secure the country's most critical infrastructure, military bases, airports, gold refineries, and key government sites. Third, train Burkina Faso's forces in the gritty tactics North Korea have perfected: counterinsurgency, surveillance, coup prevention, and rapid infiltration response. And make no mistake, this wasn't slapped together overnight. This has been in the works for weeks and maybe longer. Back-channel talks, joint planning, strategic simulations. Infrastructure was already in place by the time those boots hit the ground. This wasn't a reaction. It was a calculated move. So what triggered it? Behind the scenes in Ouagadougou, military insiders point to a sharp rise in threats. Just in the last 6 months, Burkina Faso's intelligence services, backed by Russian advisors, uncovered 2 major coup plots. Encrypted messages between rogue military elements and foreign operatives were intercepted. An armed group tried to seize a regional command center, and every failed attempt only made things more dangerous. This wasn't about weakening Traoré, it was about removing him permanently. After the most recent plot collapsed, Burkina Faso stopped playing defense. They opened a new chapter in their security strategy, and they didn't turn to Paris or Washington. They called Pyongyang. Now the world is watching, because this isn't just about Burkina Faso anymore. It's about the future of global alliances and what happens when old playbooks get tossed out the window. Stay tuned, because what's happening in West Africa could rewrite the rules. Russia was already in the mix, boots on the ground, intel flowing. But for Burkina Faso, it still wasn't enough. They needed something more, something that didn't come with speeches, red tape, or Western strings attached. They needed a force that doesn't play by the rules, a force trained to disappear into the shadows, sniff out threats before they explode, and act decisively where diplomacy just doesn't cut it. That's when North Korea got the call. Now they're here. And the question is, what does this mean not just for Burkina Faso, but for the whole power game playing out across Africa? Stick around, because this story, it's only getting started. And hey, if this is blowing your mind like it did ours, hit that like button, share it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Now let's dig deeper. Turns out North Korea didn't just send soldiers, they rolled out a full-on security package. We're talking encrypted comms, surveillance countermeasures, and battlefield tactics honed by decades of running the world's most intense internal security machine. While most of the world watches Pyongyang's missile tests and nuclear brinkmanship, they miss something else. North Korea is a master of regime survival. And now, they're exporting that model to Burkina Faso. These elite commandos aren't parked in some parade ground. They're stationed in high-risk zones around the capital and in the volatile northern regions, where insurgents have been active, and coups are always just one bad week away. But they're not just guarding doors. They're working shoulder to shoulder with Burkina Faso's Presidential Guard, creating hybrid units trained in quick strikes, loyalty enforcement, and rapid lockdown of sensitive sites. This isn't military aid, it's a regime fortification. And here's the twist. This is the first time in decades that North Korea has deployed troops in Africa in a direct combat support role. That's huge, especially when you consider the timing. France outside, the US pulling back, ECOWAS, divided, weakened, and struggling to stay relevant. Into that vacuum step the Russians and now the North Koreans. Unlike the West, which comes with press conferences, democratic ideals, and lots of promises, Pyongyang showed up quiet, fast, and with no apologies. No NGOs, no transition plans, just soldiers, loyalty, and zero tolerance for instability. And maybe that's why they were welcome. Burkina Faso didn't want speeches. They wanted security. But this move raises bigger questions, way bigger. Why would North Korea, one of the most locked-down, sanctioned regimes on Earth, risk so much to defend a transitional military government in West Africa? What's in it for Pyongyang? What's the real play here? And how does this fit into the bigger story of Africa slowly turning its back on the West? When North Korean commandos touched down in Burkina Faso, the world asked the same question. Why? This isn't about headlines. North Korea couldn't care less about Western media spin. This isn't charity, peacekeeping, or some goodwill mission. This is calculated. This is about survival, power, and a chance to expand influence without anyone stopping them. Let's break it down. North Korea has long been cut off from real-world battlefield testing. Their military doctrine? Built on theory, war games, and drills. But no boots-on-the-ground experience in foreign conflict zones, not since the Cold War. Burkina Faso changes that. It gives Pyongyang a live proving ground, a lab for tactics, a place to gather intel, test gear, and build relationships beyond China and Russia. And that's just the beginning. Because if this works, if Traore holds power and the insurgents are kept at bay, don't be surprised if North Korean security packages start popping up elsewhere on the continent. So yeah, this isn't just about one country. This is about the reshaping of alliances, the decline of Western influence, and the rise of new, unpredictable players in Africa. And the next chapter, it's already being written. Stay tuned. Imagine this, a live war zone thousands of miles from Asia, a place where ambushes hit hard, coups simmer in silence, and city streets melt into dense jungle. Welcome to Burkina Faso, and for North Korea, this isn't just a foreign hotspot. It's a rare opportunity, a chance to run real-world tests in unpredictable, high-stakes combat conditions. By embedding elite troops in Burkina Faso, Pyongyang gets more than just presence on African soil. They're turning the country into a live-fire lab, testing their surveillance tech, refining their special ops playbook, and learning how to defend leaders in the middle of chaos. But this deployment, it's not just about military experiments, it's ideological. To North Korea, President Ibrahim Traoré isn't just a local strongman, he's a symbol, a kindred spirit. He's not begging the IMF for loans. He's not signing away his sovereignty at summits in Brussels. He's kicking foreign soldiers out, calling ECOWAS's bluff, and refusing to play by Western rules. To Pyongyang, that's not just impressive, it's inspirational. Traore is the kind of leader North Korea believes the world needs more of. Fiercely independent, anti-imperialist, military first, and in a global South where most leaders still nod to Washington or Paris, that makes him a rare breed. So when North Korea backs Traore, it's more than a political gamble. It's a statement. We stand with those who stand alone. And yes, it's a strategy too. As the US pulls back and France gets pushed out, Pyongyang sees its window opening. This is a chance to finally build roots in a continent where Western dominance is falling apart in real time. Because influence means access. Access to gold, uranium, rare earth minerals, agricultural exports. And according to insiders, the deals are already being whispered about behind closed doors, tech for resources exchanges, weapon swaps, maybe even bypassing global banking systems like SWIFT to create a whole new underground pipeline of trade. This isn't just a military alliance. It's the birth of an alternative economy, a network that doesn't run through DC, Brussels, or the World Bank, but through Ouagadougou, Pyongyang, and a growing list of capitals that are tired of playing by old rules. Analysts are calling it North Korea's Southern Opening Doctrine, a major foreign policy pivot. Because let's face it, in Asia, North Korea's boxed in. The West has too many allies, too many barriers. But Africa is shifting fast. And Pyongyang wants in before the map is redrawn. And guess what? Burkina Faso is just the first chapter. Back in 2023, North Korea quietly rekindled ties with Guinea-Bissau in the Central African Republic. Their state-run news started praising Mali and Nigeria for pushing back against foreign meddling. At the UN, North Korean diplomats were shaking hands with African blocs, offering budget-friendly security packages and mutual defense pacts. So, when 700 North Korean troops touched down in Burkina Faso, that wasn't random. It was part of a carefully planned, multi-phase rollout. The goal: embed North Korea in Africa's future by supporting the leaders who say no to Western pressure. And in return, North Korea gets more than trade, more than gold, more than data. They get legitimacy. Every time a North Korean soldier stands next to an African president, it chips away at the narrative that Pyongyang is isolated or irrelevant. Every time a general from Burkina Faso thanks a North Korean trainer, it sends a message across the developing world. You don't need the West to survive. You don't need the West to win. This is soft power, delivered with combat boots and encrypted radios. But the biggest win for North Korea? They've carved out space where the West can't touch them. A quiet zone of influence, off the radar, and potentially unstoppable. Burkina Faso has cut the cord with France and ECOWAS, and that move turned the country into what you might call a free zone, a place where Pyongyang can send in its troops without sweating US drones, Western spies, or sanctions breathing down their necks. Think about it. While American satellites monitor every inch of North Korea, Burkina Faso offers something rare: shadows, areas where operations can run smooth, information can flow freely, and tactics can evolve without Washington's prying eyes. And what does Burkina Faso get out of this deal? Survival. President Traore now has a second layer of defense. If anyone tries to take him out, they're not just facing a local military leader, they're up against a fierce alliance, one that doesn't flinch, doesn't apologize, and doesn't wait around for a UN green light. So yes, North Korea is sending commandos to Africa, a continent it's barely touched in decades. But this wasn't a reckless gamble. It was a calculated move into the one place on Earth where the battle for global influence is still wide open. When those North Korean troops landed in Ouagadougou, they weren't just there to stand guard or pace the palace walls. Their mission was far deeper, building a defense system designed to shut down spies, stop sabotage, and crush betrayal from within. What a lot of people don't realize: the commandos on the ground are just the opening act. A foreign military presence alone won't secure a leader like Traore. He's got enemies outside the country and traitors inside his own ranks. Protection is more than muscle. Survival means nothing if you don't reinvent the very systems that made you vulnerable in the first place. And that's exactly what's happening now in Burkina Faso. North Korean forces sparked a full-on military and intelligence shakeup, something the country has never seen before. Traore isn't just patching leaks. He's tearing up the old blueprint and writing a brand new one. He knows exactly where things fell apart. A fractured army, divided loyalties, a command chain tangled with foreign powers, and intelligence services that leaked more secrets than they gathered. So the new playbook is all about loyalty from within, strategic independence, and ironclad resistance. The overhaul started quietly. Key players in sensitive spots were quietly rotated out, some retired, others reassigned. These weren't headline-grabbing firings. They were precise surgical removals, often identified through loyalty checks and counterintelligence runs backed by North Korea. The goal? Make sure nobody near the president has ties to foreign interests. Then came the big retraining. Not just for the presidential guard's usual close protection, this was next-level stuff. They drilled emergency lockdowns, encrypted field communications, and how to sniff out hidden enemies before they strike. This wasn't your average military boot camp. It was a complete transformation of the state's security DNA. Everything modeled after North Korea's elite leadership protection units, built on secrecy, deep ideological loyalty, and unbreakable discipline. And it didn't stop there. Next up, the intelligence system. For years, Burkina Faso's intelligence was basically an extension of foreign embassies, information filtered, censored, and often funneled through outsiders before reaching the president. That's over now. Under Traore's leadership, control is being taken back. Something big is happening in Burkina Faso, and it's flying under the radar. A brand new surveillance and early warning system is being built from the ground up. But this time, it's not for foreign embassies or international donors. It's for them to protect their own government from sabotage, coups, and betrayal. One top official, speaking anonymously, put it plainly: "We used to watch on behalf of others. Now we watch for ourselves." That's the shift. The new doctrine is built around deep loyalty vetting, identifying local infiltrators, and shutting down subversive threats before they ever have a chance to move. This isn't just about arming troops. It's about rewiring minds, teaching agents to think like spies, plotters, and saboteurs so they can take down threats before a single shot is fired. And this transformation, it's not just in the capital. Out in the provinces, especially the regions hit hardest by insurgents, and paramilitary groups' parallel security chains are being put in place. These are direct communication lines between field commanders and the presidency. No middlemen, no red tape, no foreign interference slowing down the response. This setup mirrors North Korea's own defense structure, where public systems exist, but the real power flows through tight-knit loyalty networks and sealed communication channels. But don't get it twisted. Traore isn't trying to become the next Kim Jong-un. He's cherry-picking what works: defensive precision, not dictatorship, and blending it with a fierce African spirit of independence. This isn't about building a tyranny. It's about building a shield, one forged out of necessity, betrayal, and decades of foreign overreach. And guess what? It's working. Reports say infiltration attempts are down. Insider threats have been shut down before they could act. And the military, for the first time in years, it's rallying around a clear chain of command, one that reports to Burkina Faso, not Paris, not Brussels, not Washington. And the strategy is spreading. Inside the alliance of Sahel states, that's Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, military leaders are meeting behind closed doors, trading notes, and adapting the same playbook for their own national security systems. No, they're not trying to become North Korea. They're learning from it, learning how to be self-reliant, how to run a security state without needing help or permission from the West. It's not about cloning Pyongyang. It's about finally becoming what Africa was never allowed to be: sovereign, secure, and unshackled from foreign puppet strings. Traore knows the threats haven't disappeared. He knows that a coup doesn't always wear a uniform, that sabotage doesn't always come in with a gun. But the system he's building now, it doesn't just wait to be attacked. It sees the threat coming and crushes it before it grows. And that's a game changer. With both North Korea and Russia now backing leaders in the Sahel, we're not just watching a local shift, we're witnessing the emergence of a new power bloc. When a country fends off multiple assassination attempts, breaks up coup plots, boots out foreign troops, and overhauls its entire security system with help from sanctioned nations, it's clear something far bigger is happening. Burkina Faso isn't just defending itself anymore. It's becoming the epicenter of a global power realignment. And the shockwaves? They're already shaking the foundations of the old world order. What's happening in Burkina Faso isn't just about one man holding on to power. It's about rewriting the playbook. With help from North Korea's tactical brains and Russia's special forces muscle, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has done more than protect his presidency. He's launched a whole new kind of alliance in Africa. one that operates without permission from Washington, without oversight from Paris, and without strings attached from the IMF. This isn't just defiance, it's replacement of systems, allegiances, and global assumptions. For decades, the West treated Africa like a backyard project. Lectures, handouts, interventions always under the guise of help. But now, that grip is slipping. In the Sahel, a new axis is forming, and it's not built on slogans. It's built on strategy. North Korea and Russia aren't sending diplomats. They're sending elite troops, encrypted tech, battlefield-tested doctrines, and direct action playbooks. This isn't symbolic, it's real, it's expanding, and it's shaking the very foundation of Western influence across the continent. This shift isn't about ideology, it's about leverage. Burkina Faso isn't just rejecting the old system, it's replacing it, swapping out Western intelligence networks for loyalty-driven models, rebuilding military command from the inside out, rerouting trade away from SWIFT and toward gold, minerals, and barter deals. Russia gets strategic footholds in gold-backed trade. North Korea gets real-world testing grounds and influence in the global south. And for Burkina Faso, for once, it gets solid backing without moral lectures or backroom demands. This is what true mutual interest looks like, and it's catching on. Mali and Niger, also members of the Alliance of Sahel States AES, are taking notes. In Mali, Russian special forces are integrating into national security. North Korean-style surveillance tools are popping up in rural command centers. Even Nigeria is exploring barter-based weapons deals, cutting Western banks out entirely. These aren't isolated moves. They're coordinated. AES is no longer just a regional security pact. It's becoming a launchpad for a new political identity in Africa. And others are watching. Chad, Guinea, Sudan. Countries in transition, uncertain about the West, are now asking, what if we don't need ECOWAS? What if we don't need the IMF? What if we can protect ourselves together? That's the real threat to the West, not the coups. Irrelevance. Because if this model spreads, if more African nations start building internal stability with Eastern partners instead of Western ones, the whole game changes. No more proxy control, no more aid with fine print, no more regime change diplomacy dressed up as democracy support. Instead, a continent long divided by colonial borders is beginning to unite around a new mindset, one that values sovereignty, solidarity, and survival without foreign control. But this isn't just about Africa. From Latin America to Southeast Asia, countries are watching. Iran, Venezuela, parts of Southeast Asia. And what they're seeing isn't chaos, they're seeing a blueprint. A world that no longer runs on Washington's timeline. A world where Western approval isn't the ticket to survival. What Traore and his allies are building is more than an alliance. It's a new language of power, one that doesn't ask for a seat at the old table, but builds its own. And here's the part the West still doesn't get. Those 700 North Korean commandos, they're not just boots on the ground. They're a signal that the monopoly is over, a signal that a new global order is rising not from Wall Street or Geneva, but from the Sahel. Forged in resistance, built in silence, now moving with purpose. Burkina Faso isn't a case study anymore. It's the prototype. So what's next? Will Traore stay the course, or will global pressure force him to bend? Will this new alliance hold or break under the weight of Western retaliation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Think the West will strike back out of fear or jealousy? And if you want to stay ahead of what's coming, hit that subscribe button, smash the bell, and join the conversation. Thanks for watching. This story's just getting started.